So hello everybody. So of course I'm Eric. This is my track. Happy to have you all. So as we get started, one thing I do want to address, and Drew mentioned it as we came into the breakout room. I have been with Living Security for quite a while, basically since its inception, if you can believe that. And back in the day, one thing that we did to engage the human was we were working with physical escape rooms. I know that seems a little crazy, and maybe some folks out there actually got to experience some of that. But really what that meant was that we were able to create a fun activity that was around security concepts that seem hard and daunting, maybe scary at times for users who, whether they know it or not, are interacting with them day in and day out. What was really nice about the experience is that by going out and actually engaging, getting smiles, getting conversations going, put a face to security, we were actually able to see that the security concepts that we reviewed with the people actually came back with a much higher retention rate. And I do have a case study. Just to real quick, I want to call out some numbers for you. We did an A/B study with a large telecom company back in the day. Basically, what they did on their side is that they went through their standard SAT training, and then they had a second group go through the Living Security physical escape room. Now, with the physical escape room, everybody was tested afterwards, and with that, we saw a 43% drop in clicks for phishing simulations, and we also saw a 202% increase in the reports of those phishing simulations. So I think that is, powerful statement to throw out just in the beginning of this, to say that engaging everybody at the organization is not, of course, key, but can be really fun as you as you go along. So kicking into my presentation here, really what I want to cover in my agenda is just the challenges with tracking human risk. So just, what challenges are you going to be up against? The next one is, what's the role of empowerment and where does that fit in to human risk? And then finally, I want to cover some of the Living Security specific items. And I'm going to zoom in on two functionalities that we have, lenses and action plans. So these are two tools that I'm going to be talking about pretty heavily, just so you guys know how to leverage them and put them to work at your organization. Hopefully everybody gets that happy smile moment that I was able to experience in the past. Now, to break those things down, the lenses and action plans is where you can share critical data with existing resources. You can, of course, take action. It's in the name right there. Based on the human risk that you're seeing in your organization, we're going to measure those results, and then we're going to repeat, because this is the second half of the presentation. And I just want to make sure that we're driving this continuous improvement. It's not, it's one thing to go out and put on a good show for everyone, make everybody smile one time. Maybe you see a bump in rates, but it's making sure that you stay true to that message and continuously check in with those stakeholders in your organization. Now, when we talk about challenges, these are just some pretty big ones to think about. But first and foremost, we have lack of visibility. So this is difficulty in understanding, identifying, and monitoring security vulnerabilities. I think understanding is probably the trickiest one, just because we have a ton of data that sits out there, and maybe there's only so many people that understand what their data is actually showing. What's the picture they're painting behind the scenes? Now, the other challenge, of course, is just the engagement and awareness part. So how do we ensure that all employees from entry level all the way to executives are engaged and at least aware of their role in the security? And the last bit of this is just continuous improvement across the organization. So this can be tough, but I think understanding what culture you have at your organization is key. And then finding where you want it to be as an end state is also important. So just maintaining that can, of course, become daunting. But my last little point here, I put it on purpose. If we read this in reverse, I've actually given some clues just with these challenges. When we talk about continuous improvement across the organization, as long as us as security professionals are going to the organization continually, getting feedback, even on those times that we might not have hit the mark exactly, we're going to be driving some sort of culture, and that's a win. Now, if we're driving that culture and we're continuously touching base with these folks, that's going to be engaging just by default. And also, that's going to make people aware. As long as you're meeting with every sector of your organization, that's going to make them aware of what role they should be playing. And then finally, if we're doing those two things, look at that. We just uncovered some of that, visibility that we might be lacking to begin with. So not that that's my entire presentation, but I think there's a light at the end of the tunnel here. Now, when we talk about defining risk, so you might have seen this slide a little bit earlier, but I think it's important to touch on. At Living Security, we define risk by kind of three factors all put together. So first is the threat itself. Next is going to be the vulnerability, and then of course the impact. All of those together actually are what we want to define as risk. Now, an example of that is maybe you have some users that are heavily targeted and they're also repeat clickers, or maybe they've clicked once or twice in one of your simulations, and they have privileged access. So all of those things put together make them exposed to risk, right? And makes them somebody you want to be paying attention to. Now, the way we're going to get that risk is we're going to pull telemetry from your tech stack, whether it be email security data, the real or phishing data that you guys are looking through day in, day out, and of course your identity and access management tools. Once we have all that together, we can create a pretty comprehensive image of where risk sits within the org. Now, one thing that I want to highlight here is risk isn't just that John Smith clicked on a link, or John Smith didn't take a training or reuse his passwords, etc. That is a risky behavior, but that doesn't fully paint the picture of the risk that we want to capture and be sure that we're trying to mitigate. Now, the first step in this journey and understanding is just to talk about insights a little bit. So insights, specifically here at Living Security, are converted summarizations of the raw data that you're sending us. So that's broken down into two main categories. First are going to be the behaviors, and those are controllable. So John Smith clicking a fish, that's something that he, of course, can control. But the events are uncontrollable, and these could be things like fish targeted. John Smith has no say whether or not he's targeted or not, and maybe his role makes him particularly targeted. So those are things to be factoring in. The other thing when we break down insights here is you're talking about how these insights fit into 5 big business risk categories. So we break that down into account compromise, malware, compliance, phishing and email vulnerability, as well as data loss. So all of those together help you paint a big picture for the stakeholders that are going to be, coming to you and asking for, how does this make sense? What do we do now? So if you look at the screen on the right-hand side, this is just a quick example that I pulled from Unify. So once you come on board, we're going to start getting data. We're going to get insights. We're going to show you what's going on. And very often we're going to be pinning insights that you have perceived risk in. And you can see here, this is a perfect example where we're capturing 3 of the top risky things that we're having. But down at the bottom, we show what are the top 5 risky insights that are just there in the organization that maybe would have been a blind spot had we not surfaced it. So understanding this and maybe reevaluating some of the data that's coming in can help you refocus your effort, because believe me, entertaining and engaging everybody can be tricky sometimes. But if we have the right focus in the right area, it can make a heck of a lot of change. Now, when talk about tools, this is going to talk about the first tool we get into here, and this is Lenses. So Lenses is going to be an admin tool that provides visibility into the risk, but also allows you to be a little bit proactive by sharing that same lens to everybody. So I have a little GIF there of lady putting her goggles on, and that's exactly what the lenses are doing. It's allowing you to put on your spectacles and zoom in a particular area. Now, these can be zoomed in or filtered rather by segments, which are just a group of identities that are coming in, the risk levels that you want to be paying attention to, again, those insights that I just talked about a little bit ago, and the impact modifiers. Now, Evan said impact modifier, so just to pause there. Impact modifier is that this person is an executive, or this person has privileged access in general. Those impact modifiers are going to go into the equation to say that this person is very risky or maybe not so risky, pending what events and behaviors we're seeing come in. Now, the best part about all of this, and I mentioned earlier, these limited views can actually be granted as role-based access. So here is the first tip and trick. With these lenses, I would definitely encourage you to take advantage of them, to zoom in on areas that you want to be paying attention to, but also sharing those to the stakeholders in that area. So maybe you see your sales department and they're out on websites because they're getting leads, or they're going to click links because they're getting meeting invites all the time. If that's the case, you can create a lens specific to that department or specific to a certain risk that you're seeing and share it to that department manager or head or director and make sure that they're able to check that. Now, it doesn't mean that they have to be checking it all the time. They can check in maybe once a quarter, maybe once a week if you really get lucky, or maybe just once a month, that nice Goldilocks spot. But either way, checking in on that empowers them to come to you with questions. Hey, I notice my risk is going down. How do I get around that? Or I'm flatlining, or I'm going well. Can I get some congratulations? And that's something you guys can absolutely do. There's a presentation earlier where there was a slide used just as a congratulatory statement. And I think that's an excellent use of empowering and making people feel good about their role in the security, because really the people are the best defense that any organization has. So if you can get them encouraged to be reporting phish or telling you about something suspicious that happened, that is great. And this is just one of the tools that we can use to get that in front of them. Now, to see some of this in action, I pulled out 2 views of lenses just so we can get some meat on the bones. So we go through our Living Security's typical 3 spots. We're identifying, protecting, and reporting. So this is just an example where we saw some data coming in between contractors and FTEs. So I've highlighted a specific item, and that is the phishing reporting adoption. So this is something that I think is old as a tale old as time. Where you have a new phishing button, or you have a new phishing vendor, or whatever it may be, or maybe you've had it for a long time, but people just aren't using the button. And if that should be the case, you can absolutely see that through a lens. And this particular breakdown shows that the contractors are using the reporting adoption a heck of a lot less than your full-time employees. So this is the first, aha moment that you can have through a lens and say, what do we do about this? So we move into the protect phase, and this is where we're going to improve that contractor onboarding documentation. Maybe we want to send out some targeted comms saying, hey, this is the reporter button, here's how it's used, and here's how it's useful. And then, of course, the last bit of it is we need to track that. Once we deliver that message, we need to stay engaged. It's not just one and done. We stay engaged, track those metrics, and then, again, come back with congratulations, or we'll try something different next time. Now, another thing that comes along with this is the actions. So the next tool I want to bring out here is action plans. So at the end of that, I said I'm going to be tracking metrics. I'm going to be getting some measured results from the thing that I did. And that's where action plans come in. So this is an admin tool that allows you to generate a report and track specific impacts to your behavior. So as you do your intervention, whatever that may be, whether it's a training, a workshop, a lunch and learn, really anything you have in your utility belt as a security professional, you can absolutely use. And the action plans allow you to snapshot that and then track over time. And now it's configured by identities, their associated behaviors, and then, of course, the period of time that you want to be watching for. So as we take action, here is a nice example that I pulled out, just a kind of a general item that we can go through. So with an action plan, we're going to pinpoint impactful and risky behaviors for high-risk users. And that's going to be pretty straightforward on the dashboard. You're going to see where your risk is coming in, where your risk isn't as high, and then, of course, where your vigilance is as well. Now, after that, we'll go ahead and assign training, or we'll do that workshop like I mentioned before. And then, of course, at the end, we're going to get X reduction in risk and Y increase in vigilance, which I think is the absolute goal to most of our interventions as security professionals. So this is just a nice tale to tell with my imagery again. So you can see here, back in October 1, here's where we had some folks coming through with simulated phish clicks. So we had a lot of high risk. We had a lot of somewhat risky. So these are people that are coming in, they're clicking, maybe they didn't use the reporter button. They're doing something that's just a little bit off. Now, for this particular action plan, you can see that the action that was actually taken was they assigned 3 modules to each of the individuals that came up with this kind of risk. Then they did 4 lunch and learns that were voluntary for the same group of users. They can come and go as they please. And that's where all those conversations are had. And communication is really the big tool to say, hey, we see what you're doing. It's not bad. It's okay. Here's how we're going to get better. And then the last bit is that they actually set up a Slack group for affected users. So this is similar to a security champion program that's used in a lot of different organizations, just having a place where people can come in, not feel judged by being a little bit risky sometimes, or maybe it's risk that, again, is coming from an event, so they can't even control it. How do I get around it? Having a place for those folks to talk back and forth, learn tips and tricks from each other, all while you're there maybe monitoring or adding in little snippets, of course, showed a big change come December. So towards the end of the year, we had been tracking this for a couple of months. And we can see that big change where our high risk is now very low. We have some neutral users that have come into the fray. And now we have a big jump in the high vigilance. So this is exactly the kind of report that you want to capture to say, look, what we're doing is working. And this is perfect. This is exactly what we want. We saw this risk come in. We took this action, and here's how it's effective. So you can absolutely take this to leadership and say, check it out. We're doing exactly what we need to be doing. Now, the last bit here is just which actions for which people. Now, I've kind of smattered these in as we go through, but these are important to call out. So when we talk about empowering employees, these are going to be engaging trainings and workshops. So in my intro, I mentioned the physical escape room. The physical escape room is no longer, but we do have Cyber Escape Online, which is a virtual escape room. Comes with videos, puzzles, questions, and of course, they can play it on their own. So they just have their own fun team building exercise to learn about security concepts together. Or you can also jump in and moderate for yourself. Add in, again, your security quips or maybe some good messaging that you should be paying attention to. I also mentioned security championship programs. I'd be curious how many people are using security championship programs and how effective they've seen those be in the past. And then the last bit here, at least for the employee level, is just make it a competition if that fits the culture. One of the biggest learning moments I've had with living security is, again, engaging the user, empowering them to feel confident about their security and what role they play at the org is exciting. It's even more exciting if you can go to the break room in a couple hours and say, hey, I have a better security score than you, or I'm part of the best team. Look, we walk around with a little badge of honor saying, I have no open risk, and that's great. Now, when we talk about empowering the managers, this again is going through and sharing the information. So you're going to be doing a lot on your side to be tracking the risk that comes in. You're also going to be looking through the entire organization. That's tough, right? You're going to have a lot of folks that you're managing, and you may be one person. Heck, even if you're a team of people, that team is only a small chunk of the larger organization. So leveraging those lenses that give you simple reports that are focused on the vigilance or risk in a particular area helps you spread the love, if you will. So we can spread it out and make sure that those managers feel empowered to come to you and say, hey, this is where my risk is. I'd like to see it go up. I'd like to, congratulate my folks, or maybe I don't even know what's happening here. Could you better explain it to me so I can become more vigilant for the organization? That is a very powerful tool. We've seen a ton of clients actually create forms that they just put on an internal website and becomes, second nature almost. Hey, I have this issue. How do we address it? And that again puts that face on security, which is great. Now, the last bit of this for the managers is just leave that door open to act or reach out. So once they start giving you feedback, keep that feedback up. It's important. We're all human. Believe it or not, we all like to communicate back and forth. So again, giving that badge of honor is great. Now, for the last bit of this, for the empowering executives, this is empowering them to feel confident in the strategic moves that they're making. So where are we spending money? What are our efforts? Are they effective? Those are tough questions. But if you're able to take a risk assessment from the Unify platform, say, here, look, this is the exact report of exactly what we've done, and here's what's working and what's not, that's powerful. That's exactly what they're after. They don't want to just see, here's all your training completions. Here's the people who clicked and who didn't. That's good data, but putting it all together and saying, here's how security works in motion and all of the great relationships you now have with the rest of the organization, it's invaluable. Now, the last thing I'll just toss here, at least with the slide deck here, is just to keep those feedback loops alive and well. Again, just reiterate, keeping those dialogues back and forth is going to be paramount to keep everybody excited. Now, I will switch to a quick demo to see all of this in action for everybody. So just switching over to the Unify dashboard, this may be new to some of you folks, but this is essentially the view that you would be coming into when you're looking at Unify. So this is just a demo set of data, but I think it does a good job of illustrating the power that you guys have in your hands really at any time. So first we come into the dashboard and we get some heads up information. So we know what our human risk index is. Across the org, we're sitting roughly neutral. We can also see what kind of behaviors or threats are impacted by this, and we get a rough score, so we know how we're doing. Now, as we scroll down through here, here's where we get the breakdown. Here's the meat and potatoes to the whole thing, where we can see what job titles, what departments, what office locations are doing well, and which ones may need a little bit of help. So this is going to help you zoom in on particular areas that you want to be watching. Now, again, I used this screenshot a little bit earlier, but down below, we have the pinned insights versus just the top 5 risky insights that we're seeing coming into the organization. So here we can see the same example that I had pulled earlier. we have those top three pinned, but this bottom section is also very powerful to say, hey, we might have some blind spots in areas that don't show up top. And those areas, maybe they're login failures and they're malicious. Maybe we're just seeing an increase in suspicious IP addresses come across. That's important to pay attention to as well. So as you just log in, you're immediately getting insights on what's happening in the org and where you may want to focus your attention. Now, if I were to go ahead and move into one of these lenses real quick. So just at the just going across the top here. There we go. So you can see before I was sitting in the entire organization. This gives you that big broad view, and that feels good, right? Just to know where the org is and kind of get that 10,000 foot level. But now as we zoom in to just say, show me executives and maybe where some strengths or weaknesses may be. Here we see some of those items that are coming in for them as we scroll down. Here we can see, oh, we have almost the same match in the insights that are coming across. And for this group, we're seeing that these people are targeted, and maybe they're also moving data around, and that may be suspicious. So those might be areas that you want to address with, again, a lunch and learn or some sort of activity where you can talk about, hey, CEO, if you're going to be moving data around, make sure you follow this particular policy, or make sure that you're doing it in a secure way. Now, from here, if I did want to take an action, so I say, here's my executives, and I wanted to talk about, let's just choose let's just do phishing. Why not? So when we go into the insight, now we actually get some more data. So we can see exactly what the detections are as they come in. So this is that understanding part that I mentioned very early. So the visibility, we've now had 3 tiers that we've gone through. So now we know exactly what we're working with. And again, very powerful. We can see exactly how many detections we're seeing, when we're seeing them. If there's a particular spike, that might be something to pay attention to. Maybe it's time to update definitions somewhere. Maybe it's a policy change you need to make. But we also see who makes up this particular group of executives. So I can see, okay, here's how Tommy Robinson's doing, in comparison to Miss Vicky Flowers, for example. But then the last piece here is that take action part. And the take action is as simple as it comes. It is just, we're in an insight already. We're going to click create action plan, and now we'll give you 2 options. So the first one is a little homegrown, and that's going to be the living security training side of things. So this is saying, I love living security's content. It's already engaging as is. So let's go ahead and use some of that as a push, right? As a nudge along the way to remind folks, hey, when you're getting these fish, make sure you're reporting them. If it seems suspicious, here are the the red flags to be watching for. But we also have a custom, and this custom is really kind of a la carte to you folks. If there's a particular mechanism that you have within the org, maybe you're going to send emails out. Maybe you're going to have that lunch I'm going to keep talking about. That's where the custom would come in. Both of them are going to give you the same result, and that's the ability to create the action plan itself, which is going to timestamp the observed period that you're after, who you're going to be watching, and then for what insight you want to be paying attention to. Now, a nice feature we slotted into the living security specific one is that we're already inserting some recommendations for you. So based on the insights, we've gone through our content catalog and we picked out, here's the good trainings that match well with this particular insight. And we actually pre-fill some of these fields for you if you're going through the training side. So we already have our action that we're doing. We have the name already filled in based on what we're going to do. And we also give a brief description. So that's already pre-filled out. We also have the ability to add additional insights if that's useful. So you say, these fish click, are they doing something else? Maybe they have some additional targeting that they're seeing, or maybe they're doing some other activities. You can pull those into this action plan as well. You're not limited by the view you were in previous. Now, the next section here, we're just going to be naming this. So we call this, suspicious. I'm just going to cheat for time here. I'll just call them the fish targeted and clicked folks, because why not? So that'll become a group of users that now goes over to training, and we can continue to educate these people. Again, it's not one and done. This group we can continuously come back to for trainings, maybe call them out on a particular campaign that we want to set. But then this last part is really where the money is, and that is that recommended content I mentioned before. So because we know the insight and we have the content that matches the same concepts that come from it, we're automatically recommending some content that should go along. So once that catches up, here we go. This is just a brief campaign for the one that I selected. So just a simple security snap. So this is 1 minute long video you're going to push to these people, and that should be a gentle reminder. Hey, here's some things that we're seeing you do, and just remind you maybe not do those things moving
1 minute
forward.
warning.
Beautiful, thank you. Now the last piece I'll just cover is if you don't want the recommended content, there is a I want to do my own, and that's just selecting a different campaign from here. So that allows you to create your own specific, maybe custom to your organization training program. And once that's launched, you of course can come back into your action plans later, and of course track the progress of how that went. So I will just pull up one last example, and here's what that reporting would look like, just as I showed in the slides.